Hi everyone, this is Natalia, UGTA for CAR 334 online. It appears that there is still maybe some confusion about how to trace an execution of a program. It has multiple processes and multiple threads running. With that being said, in this video I will go over an example, specifically question 7 from the exercise for Unit 5. Here you are given a C program and you are asked to trace its output. So let's break it down and trace it step by step. First of all, outside of our main function, we do have a thread func, a function that is going to be fed into our threads. Clearly, what it is doing is printing out the value of the global variable, shared counter, then it increments the counter and terminates the thread. Now, in C, we do have the main method. That is the main process that starts by initiating variables for threads and the process PIDs. We do have first fork occurring here where the first child is created. What could be a little confusing, the PID for the first child is actually labeled second PID. Next, here in the program, we have an if statement that checks the value of the PID. Now remember that this is a flag that allows us to determine whether the following code will be executed inside of the child. Since second PID is a child process, the code inside of the if statement is going to execute, which is why we are seeing a second child being created here on this step. Now moving further, the next nested if statement is running another conditional check for first PID. Specifically in this conditional check, we are determining whether first PID is not a child, whether it's a parent. So since it's a child process and its PID is 0, the statements inside of this if statement will not get executed. In other words, we are ending up having two processes, second PID and first PID, that will each going to execute this for loop construct and all the code inside of the for loop. As you probably already figured out, the for loop itself will be creating threads. Notice that we do initialize our loop with the iteration steps from 0 to 2 exclusively, meaning that we have the iteration 1 for the value I of 0 and iteration 2 for the value I of 1. Now, being that in the pthread_create function, we are using our thread function, we are working with a global variable, shared counter. Shared counter is going to be shared between both threads inside of each process. However, the distinction is each process will have a copy of a shared counter variable. And both threads inside of each process will be sharing that copy. Alright, now let's trace the execution that takes place within the for loop here. So for the second PID process, the first print statement is printing the value of the first PID, which is 0. Being that it's a child process, it will be 0 in all four sets here. Then the second print statement is printing out the value of I. So it is going to vary between 0 and 1 as we iterate through the loop. And then on the third statement inside of the for loop, we are creating a thread. So we are creating thread 0 on the first iteration, and then we are creating thread 1 on the second iteration of the loop. Each time we are creating a thread, we're calling a thread function, which is going to first print and then increment the counter. So based on the original value in the shared counter is 0, we first are going to print out 0 for the print statement inside of the thread function. On the second iteration of a loop, being that the counter has been incremented, the second thread that is being created is going to print out the value 1 and then increment it again. Now, the same process will take place in the second child process, labeled first PID. We will see the same values popping up in the first print statement, since first PID will be 0. Then we will see that the second print statement will print 0 and 1 on the first and second iteration of a loop. And in the same fashion that we traced for the first process, we will be seeing that thread function is going to be first printing the counter value of 0. And then on the second iteration of a loop, the second thread within the second process will be printing out the value of 1, since that value has been incremented. So if it helps you visualize, here's the output of those for loops. Notice that we don't necessarily have a way to say distinctively whether these two values of second PID are going to be printed out first as opposed to the two sets of values generated by first PID process. However, those values are identical. What we do have the ability to determine definitively is the for loop iterations for the counter from 0 to 1. So we know that these two sets for second PID are going to look like 0, 0, 0 and 0, 1, 1, and then the same sequence will occur for the second process. Alright, I hope that clarifies things a little bit, and I wish you all good luck on your second exam.